Good afternoon, folks. Good afternoon. My name is Aimee Allison, founder of She the People. And I'm coming back up on stage as we filter in the room and we take our seats. This afternoon is going to be phenomenal. What did you think about this morning? I was sitting on the side, feeling my heart swell up, feeling like this room is a manifestation of a long-held dream that I have had. That is our voices and our vision being on display. So let me tell you a few things that I've heard so far. For those of you who are joining the live stream on Facebook or on YouTube, I am reading the most beautiful comments for people who have stumbled across the comments of Linda Sarsour, or the comments of Deb Haaland, or some of our other amazing speakers this morning. For those of you in the room who have stopped me and said, I've never experienced a room like this, give me a shout out, give me a clap if this is something you want to see. And I want to express deep gratitude to the organizations represented in this room. Any configuration of 30 women would have made an amazing event, because that's what kind of women are here assembled. We just saw a video featuring LaTosha Brown, who is working in the Black Belt. She is one of our hidden figures. There are top political strategists who are turning out the vote. And for those of you who don't know, black voters are 25% of the Democratic Party. No one's going to win in Congress, no one's going to win in governorship, no one's going to win in Senate without the enthusiastic support and organizing of black women like LaTosha Brown. So we have so much more to celebrate and to hear and to engage. And just to give you a preview, this is not a day and go home. We are 7 weeks before the most important election of our lifetimes. And so what that means is today is the beginning of a movement that will last at least 3 years to elevate the political voice of women of color. And one of the most important strategists who is poised to elevate and run a campaign through areas where people of color are the majority or near majority, places in the South, places in the Southwest, is an amazing, amazing leader. She's co-founder of the Texas Future Project and co-founder of Way to Win. Please put your hands together for Tori Gavito.
All right, so we're going to keep the energy up. I need my panelists to come up. We're going to just get this started. It is an honor to be here today. It's so wonderful to see so many faces that I've known for decades, people that I've just met in the last 10 days. I mean, this is the power room right here. So I am Tori Gavito. I am executive director of the Texas Future Project and co-founder of Way to Win, which I co-founded with Jen Ancona, the lovely and smart Jen Ancona from Women's Donor Network, and Leah Hunt Hendricks from the Solidaire Donor Network. And we founded Way to Win because, y'all, we know the way to win. We know the way to win. The way to win is to put our money where our mouth is and walk the talk, right? So in the last year, we've been in existence for 1 year, and in 1 year, we have moved $20 million political dollars to the efforts of the leaders in this room. We have funded 50 organizations in 20 states. We know these folks are registering hundreds of thousands of voters to take back power. We are investing in 20 congressional district races, 7 Senate races, and for those of you keeping score at home, that is more than enough races to take back power in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
We're also investing in a slew of down-ballot races. There are 30 state legislators up for grabs, and it's a historic moment where we've got Stacey Abrams in Georgia, Andrew Gillum in Florida, David Garcia in Arizona, and Ben Jealous in Maryland that that are going to make history. We know the way to win, y'all. The way to win is to invest in women on a mission. And I am on a mission. So in 2016, when we all went to bed kind of crying in our beer, I was quite happy because in 2016, because of the work of women in this room, where is she? Crystal Zermenio and Michelle Tremillo from the Texas Organizing Project and many others had swept Harris County, the largest swing county in the United States of America, in Houston, Texas, overlays Houston, Texas. They swept that county because they know the way to win is to invest in communities of color and knock on doors, and they did it. And we are now pushing Texas to swing state status because of the work of the women in this room. We know the way to win is to invest in women on a mission, and here is my mission. When I looked at the data in 2016, I saw that the states that had the most gains were those states where we have our power most concentrated. We have young people, people of color, in the most concentrated regions in the United States were the states that had the most gains in 2016. I am talking about Arizona, I am talking about Georgia, and yes, I am talking about Texas. And we did it with very little national investment. We did it with shoe power. And so I just want you to just take note for a minute with me, that Texas is a national strategy. Among those states that I just said had the biggest gains, Texas should be a national strategy, and with y'all's help, we can get it done. And let me tell you why it's important. Because by adding Texas to Colorado, New Mexico, Minnesota, and Virginia, Democrats could lose Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, Georgia, and Arizona, and still take the White House. Y'all, this is possible, and I'll tell you why it's possible. In Texas, we are just 600,000 votes down from taking that state. But there are 4 million people of color concentrated in 3 to 4 cities in our state. We can get it done, y'all, and we are doing it. Okay, last up, we know the way to win. We know the way to win is to invest in the women, not only on a mission, like on this panel, but the women who are actually winning, right? So I have here Monse from Arizona, Dewana from all over the South, mostly Alabama, and Tram from Virginia. These women are winning. They kicked Joe Arpaio out of his sheriff's seat in Arizona. They elected the first senator in 25 years from the state of Alabama. And they have taken Virginia on a steady march, not just to winning power, but actually delivering on progressive promises so that the people of Virginia have now 400,000 people have health care when they didn't before. Woo! These are the women getting the work done, and I am so proud that Way to Win is investing in them, and I'm so excited to hear from you about what y'all are doing next. So tell us about your missions, and we're going to start with Tram.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, this is an amazing opportunity, and thank you so much for being here. Like so many women who spoke earlier, I am a daughter of immigrants. I myself was born in a refugee camp in Thailand when my parents were part of the second wave of boat people who left Vietnam after the war. We came to Virginia, of all places, and settled our roots there at a time when Virginia was not what it looks like today. So growing up, I was very, very different. When I was in first grade, my classmates debated in front of me whether I was black or whether I was white because I looked too different, and they needed to put me in a box. I grew up in a Virginia where not soon after that, when my parents took us on our first vacation, and my sisters and I were excited to see our first swimming pool, we jumped in, and everybody else jumped out and said, "Chinks in the pool." That was at a time when only 1 in 100 Virginians was foreign born. That was like just a little over 30 years ago. I don't want to age myself. But you fast forward to today, and that 1 in 100 is now 1 in 7.
That's right. Wow.
So growing up, when I was told, don't worry about it, keep your head down, focus on education, at this point, there is no reason for people like us to keep our heads down, right? So for the last 10 years, our organization has been on a mission to engage this rising American majority in Virginia, in this new face of the South, where we don't have to keep our heads down, where we're registering hundreds of thousands of voters, knocking on over 1 million doors, and winning. We have elections every year, y'all. So there's no break. It's every year. And every year we have been steadily winning. But it's not just about the elections. Right? So we have done a steady stream of winning year after year. We took the governor's seat. We took the lieutenant governor's seat. Second African American to win statewide in Virginia in its history last year. But it's about what happens after November, to make sure that our communities have a seat at the table and we get to win and put forward a policy agenda that improves our lives. So in 2013, when we had a governor's race and we talked about rights restoration as the #1 issue that faced African American communities in Virginia, and we held our elected officials accountable after that. So when Terry McAuliffe signed an executive order to restore over 200,000 formerly incarcerated Virginians with their civil rights in 2016, that was as a result of not just Terry McAuliffe winning the election in November 2013, but because of the organizing that happened after he won that election, so that we could hold him accountable to sign that executive order. Those folks are registered to vote. The folks that registered to vote after that executive order turned out at 79% in the 2016 election. Right? We got Medicaid expansion after a 6-year fight this past May with a number of coalition partners. We're now nearly 400,000 Virginians, primarily working class people of color, finally have access to affordable health care. This is the way we win, when we not only think about elections, but we think about what happens after the election. Right. So I know that while we are facing the most important midterms of our lifetime right now, we need to start thinking about what happens on November 7th. That's right. It's not just about November 6th, it's what happens on November 7th, and after that, how are we holding our Congress and our elected officials accountable so that we actually have this path forward for all of us to win. So yeah, that's a little taste of Virginia.
Yeah. All right, Monse, tell us the mission you're on.
Hi everyone, again, my name is Monse. I'm currently the director of One Arizona. We are a coalition of 18 groups. Yeah! We have some members here. A special shout out. And we do civic engagement work concentrated on voter registration. This year is our biggest voter registration goal to date, 200,000 people to vote by October 9th, which is in 2 weeks about. I'm super excited, and our partners are going to accomplish half, if not more, of that goal. So and Ace, the group right here, why don't you stand up and show yourself? Woo! They're one of our teams doing this amazing work, and a team that has mostly women leading the way in this voter registration effort. So super, super proud of this group. But I wanted to talk a little bit too about 2016 in Arizona. That was a year that we got our Arpaio out of office and we ran a campaign. Yes! That married action and movement work with field tactics that we know work and get people out to vote. And social media, we married these things really, really well for the first time, really pushed on a clear message and didn't stay away from the Basa or Payo messaging. And that activated young people and activated communities that had felt unheard and felt like, well, the time I did, it didn't really work out. That's right. And also, I worked on the minimum wage campaign that year as a field director, and we got more votes for that ballot measure than either presidential candidate in 2016 in almost every legislative district in the state of Arizona. So that also showed us and told us that people care about policies. They want to hear from candidates and people about things that affect their lives every day, like minimum wage and sick days, which that ballot measure also added. And those are things they weren't hearing from either presidential candidate, and they saw on the ballot, and that was a citizen-led initiative. So again, with the folks that we're keeping accountable and also in our communities, building folks to learn how to govern and learn how we take power back through initiatives like this, through lobbying, because we can also do that. We are paving the way for leaders like these girls to do as well, ladies, women. Into the future, we actually led, even just this year, our first high school lobbying legislative day, where ACE led, and we took high school students and their teachers. As you know, this year in Arizona, teachers walked out demanding a raise and didn't work for at least 10 to 12 days that they held a sustained action at the Capitol. So our folks are activated in Arizona. They were activated in 2016 and told us that what we care is to see things that affect us every day, and we want our candidates, our representatives, to care about us and our daily lives.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, Joanna, tell us your mission, and let's leave time for Q&A.
Sure. Well, like, wait a minute now. Everybody that had a chance to talk about all that good stuff, and you telling me about the clock. But that's all right. You know, this is what we gonna do. That's what they do to us black women sometimes. But I tell you, it's all right. But you know what? To be perfectly honest, we have been in partnership. Tori and I have been in partnership with the women on this stage, honestly. Without these partnerships, a lot of our issues would not get a platform, right? And so give yourselves a clap for being here today to amplify the work that's going on all across this country. Again, my name is Joanna Thompson. I bring you greetings from a reimagined South in Birmingham, Alabama, where, you know, last year we were able to do something that nobody in this country believed that we could do, which was elect a Democrat to Senate for the first time in over 25 years. And so even though we're having to keep the foot to fire with him, amen, we did it. And just like we did that, we will be able to bring him out and put somebody else in there if we had to. Right? And so because this is about sustaining movements and what we can do. And so what we decided, and I had done a lot of work leading up into Alabama. I'm originally from Birmingham, but I worked in the administration of President Obama. I worked with Cory Booker. I've worked with so many dynamic leaders who I saw, you know, when they got the resources and put the infrastructure in place and all of that, amazing things could happen. But I kept saying, why do we not see this same sort of investment in places like Georgia, where all we need is X amount of resources, and we know we can turn out black and brown people to change the state of Georgia. We know if we put that money on the ground in places like Alabama and North Carolina and Florida, that all we need is the chance to put the resources on the ground and to build out the infrastructure that we could win. And what we realized is they didn't want to win the South. That's the reality. They did not want to win the South because they knew that if we won the South, we would change this country again forever. And so that's what we're doing, right? And so, you know, we started a program called Woke Vote. Some of you may have buttons out here. Deanna Reed, one of my colleagues, is here today with me. And what we determined was that there are black millennials and black people in the black faith tradition that have not been organized to the best of our ability, that have not been invested in to the best of our ability, who have not been taught how to lead their own programming, stuff that makes sense for them to go out and continue to do so. We figured, listen, yeah, we know how to do some things, but what would it look like if we actually invested in the people who are indigenous to the ground, who know their communities, who know their black sacred spaces, and make sure that they have what they need to continue to move forward. And that's what we did. We raised over $4 million to come into black communities in 2017 in Alabama. Never been done before. Right. And what was amazing about that, and I think this is maybe many of you are fighting this too, is that, you know, when we were raising this money, we knew that work had to look different, right? That some of the traditional models do not work in communities of color, and we need to stop doing it. We need to stop losing for no reason. And so what we told them is that, you know, you've got to do cultural specific programming. You've got to do work that looks different than somebody just showing up 2 days before the election with a hot dog at church. Like, that's not going to work for our communities anymore, right? And so, but guess what? They told us, well, y'all figure that out, but we still only want most of our money to go to these traditional things that we believe work. So we had to prove to them by raising our own resources to do this non-traditional programming, which is actually what made the difference in Alabama, and what's making the difference right now in Georgia, and what's making the difference right now in Florida. And so I want to stand with women all over this country who know the way to win, who know that if we have the resources that we can do so much more than what the traditional modeling says. And the last thing I would say is that, you know, much to what Tran was saying about Virginia and about what happens after the election, our young people particularly are not as motivated by candidates anymore, right? That is not how you are going to win over the vast majority of the South or anywhere else. And what we realized is that we had to help them to believe and understand that the vote is a strategic tool. It is a part of a larger liberation strategy. And so as we were beginning to help them understand that, that made them feel free. People want to feel free, right? And so the work that we're doing, we trained over 50-something Woke Vote fellows over the summer for 8 weeks, taught them every possible thing that they could learn about, we call it from the rooter to the tutor, about politics, right? About every single part. And now they're leading the work in over 9 states across the South. They're the ones who are organizing their communities, went back to their states, and are doing the work. And so we will continue to put the resources into the people on the ground, and we're going to win Florida. We're going to win Georgia. We're going to win North Carolina and Alabama this year.
Yes. All right. So Tram last night was actually taking calls at like 10 p.m. PT time from Pacific Coast time, from Virginia, from the governor's office. And so I'm going to ask you the question. You have to answer it the way you did in the green room. And the question was, you've leapfrogged the old boys club. You are in the circle of power. You are in the hall of power. How did you do it?
Yes, Tram. How did you do it?
In the green room, I said I make people cry. And there's a little bit of ring of truth to that. But, you know, frankly, I mean, yeah, part of it is I jokingly say that, and I jokingly say I channel my inner white guy. But it's true. You have to demand a seat at the table. And I remember the first legislative session that I went to down in Richmond. It's like, who is this person here? She doesn't look like a typical lobbyist. And people weren't really necessarily taking me seriously or taking meetings. I would ride that elevator, and I would force conversations with members. And force them to listen to me until it got to a point where you build this, like, okay, she's tenacious, so let's listen to her. And then you build trust. I mean, a lot of this is about building trust and relationships and being an expert on the issues that impact our people, right? So if you want to talk about policies that impact Black communities, brown communities, low-income folks, and we're not actually at the seat of the table,
that's right.
Your policies aren't improving our lives, right? So yeah, but yes, I do make some people cry.
Okay, Monse, tell us again why you think Arizona this cycle is going to show the way forward for the future.
Well, like I said, and you said it best, right? We are teaching young people that voting is a tactic. Sometimes we call it the gateway drug to civic engagement. It's what gets us started. Thanks. And it shows us, it helps us start paying attention. And a lot of the work that we learned in 2016 with our Basta Arpaio campaign, with the minimum wage campaign, was that we know that knocking on doors matters, but we're also learning about text tactics and social media. That is where our community is to my mom, who only speaks Spanish, refuses to speak English even though she understands it, gets all of her news on Facebook. And she even Googles things on Facebook, like recipes and things like this.
Right.
Like, this is where our community is, this is where our youth is, and we are neglecting to showcase oftentimes our work to be as loud as the other side on this tool. And that is something that we are really pushing for this year in our state. And also, we have more people of color in Arizona, more Latinos than ever before. They've always been there, and a bunch of them are turning of age, and they care about not just immigration, but Black lives. They care about people having health care. They care about women having the right to choose what they do with their body. And they are challenging us. They're challenging our organizations to say, I want to care about this too. I want us to talk about liberation. I want us to talk about justice, and I want us to go into courtrooms and find out why our young people are getting felonies, and then now they can't vote, because I just ran into people and a person in the parking lot telling me that they can't register to vote. So our youth are really challenging us to do more. A lot of the reason why I'm here, a lot of the reason why I'm now the director of One Arizona is because I'm a trusted young person in the community, and I was given an opportunity and was told, you can do this, Monse, you can lead the way, and we trust you to be our face. So putting trust in the folks that are around us, and that we're training and that we are claiming are the future, trusting that and bringing them in and understanding that the things that they're saying in ways that the normal, the everyday voter speaks is how our young people speak, and that's the messaging that we're bringing along. And also, for the first time in Arizona, we're seeing more candidates of color. So it's not like in California and other places where there's a lot of candidates of color and then you have to decipher. It's the first time that we have an actual candidate of color. So it's not and that is a huge deal. People are seeing themselves on the ballot. They're seeing themselves on TV. They're seeing themselves in these conversations in ways that they've had. And we had a Native Vote Strategy session last year, and that, like Latinos, Native folks also said, I don't see myself on the ballot. I don't see myself in the political process, and I would like to. And this is the first year that is a big deal in Arizona, and our community is paying more attention.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Really related to that then, Dewana, for you, there's this is a really high level room and we could all be exchanging a lot of notes, but there are people watching online. What advice would you have for people who are coming into this space, new to politics? Like Monse says, we have to start trusting, we have to deal folks in. Yeah. So what would be your advice to people watching about how to jump into politics?
Well, I would say, first of all, stay true to whatever your moral compass is and what you believe your community needs and understands, right? And also start local. A lot of the work that we were able to do it quickly because we partnered with people who never left those communities, who knew where Miss Susie was on the corner, who sells, cupcakes on Fridays, but can get everybody to the polling center on Saturday, right? So if you start with who's there and start with what you know, that's the first thing. The other thing is to not get caught up in something that is not your fight. And the reason why I want to say that is, while our work sometimes supports each other, there is a building, if you will, that they've tried to create a space where there's not enough, where there's a scarcity mentality, that there's not enough resources for all of the work that has to happen across our communities. And what we have to do is fight against that narrative by organizing ourselves, coordinating our work together to make sure that when we're putting plans before funders, when we're putting plans before whomever it is that's going to lift up our work, that it includes everybody's program, that everybody's program has the resources to do what they need to do, so that we don't have to feel that we're in conflict with each other, that our programs are in conflict with each other. And so by doing that, I think we create a united front, and we create a space where people of color particularly are not just asking for a seat at the table, but we're saying, you can keep the table, give us the lumber, right? Give us the means to build our own table. And when you say that, that is what sustains longer than the moment that we're in. So that's what I've been telling a lot of people who are getting in. And to also note that for a lot of people, what happens in Washington, D.C. seems so far away, right? They're like, that they never understand that the fact that, what's going on in my immediate community. So anything that we can do to connect what happens in DC to what's happening local, to help people see that in a tangible way, that is really going to change the reality for so many people in that community. And a lot of times it starts with just reminding people what people's roles do. What does a congressperson do? What does a governor do? What does a district attorney do? What does a city councilor do? And by showing them what they do and aligning how that work leads, the last thing that we've told a lot of people is we can win every election that we want to win, but if that work is not sanctuaried all the way up to Congress, we will lose every single time. That's how we have lost minimum wage fights. That's how we have lost the, initiatives for women and for kids and for immigration and all these different things. Is that, yes, we got a progressive person elected on the local level, but there was nobody progressive in the House for the state. There was nobody progressive for our congressional office right in the state of Alabama. And so, yeah, we got people excited, but then we didn't do the work of making sure that that thing could go all the way where it needed to go and be sanctuaried. And so we've been talking to people about making sure those plans move all the way from where it needs to begin to sanctuary the work all the way to the end.
Okay, I think we can do this in the time that we have left. So we are all here because we stand on the shoulders of heroes, right? Absolutely. And my hero, La Mera Mera, Dolores Huerta, was here today. And I think we have to honor that. And what I want to do is just that one question down the row, who are the heroes that fuel you? Just answer the question down the row and we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Arizona, and I'm still in Arizona to speak to being in the community that I want to see change, and I want Arizona to be the Arizona that I know it can be. So I'm inspired every day by the women that I get to work with in our state. This year is the first year that the women that have been doing the work have been given the titles of that hard work that they've been doing, and I feel so inspired and blessed to be working side by them and acknowledging their value and having them be at the table deciding, strategizing what is going to be the way to win in Arizona. So, pleasure.
Awesome. I would be remiss if I didn't say my mother. She's so many of us know the hidden figures, the women in our communities who will never be named in these spaces. But my mom actually, as a college student, worked on the first election for the first black mayor of Birmingham, and I didn't find that out till like 2 days ago, right? I've been working in politics for 15 years, and she just randomly says, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, she was like, "Where did you think you get that from?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I get it, naturally, right, organically." But how many women in our communities have pushed forward movements, and we will never know their names? So I lift up every single one of those faces that go unknown, their names that go unheard of. But the people who created spaces like this, the Aimee Allisons of the world, the Tori Gravitos of the space, I lift them as well because we need them to continue doing the work. But please, the stories behind Coretta. You know the stories behind Rosa. For every Rosa, there's 15 Rosas, right? For every Coretta, there's 15 Corettas. And so please remember to lift up those people from our communities who have been doing this work without notice and without resources for a very long time. Well, we bring in the resources. Y'all bring the notice.
All right, Tram.
I mean, I honestly have to echo both Monse and it's about those hidden figures, right? And I as soon as you asked that question, Tori, I immediately thought of my mom.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds pretty cliched, but when my parents left Vietnam all those years ago, they left behind their dreams.
Yeah.
Right? They were forced to leave their country. They didn't have an opportunity to pursue their dreams. All they had was a hope that my sisters and I could pursue our dreams. And so I live that every day. I see my parents struggle coming to this country with nothing. My mom was basically a single mother while my dad had to leave us to actually try to get a bachelor's degree so he could get a job somewhere in this country. And she worked at McDonald's, just raising us 4 daughters. And so people like her, the everyday working people who are our community, those are the everyday heroes that we need to lift up on a daily basis.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. I hope you're inspired to take on this cycle. Now you'll know who to win to and join us.
For those of you watching on the Facebook live stream, don't forget to tweet about your favorite speaker, your favorite quote, or your favorite She the People moment at #SheThePeople18. At this time, we'd like to invite all of the folks who are along the walls or who are still standing to come on in and grab a seat and join in. R-O-C, ROC. It stands for Restaurant Opportunities Center. The mission of ROC United and ROC Action is to improve wages and working conditions for the nation's restaurant workforce. Welcome to the stage the co-founder and president of ROC United and ROC Action and the director of Food Labor Research Center at UC Berkeley, Sarsour Jayapal.
Thank you. So the real sheroes here are these amazing people who are restaurant servers and bartenders and workers who've come from all over the country. They're here today from New York and from Michigan and from Washington, D.C. and from Los Angeles and New Orleans. And they've come out because they are the rising American electorate. They are the face of the future. They are the women of color that are going to determine the future of every next election in the United States. They're the people who serve us, the women who serve us. So I hope you get a chance. We're all wearing these shirts. I hope you get a chance to talk to them throughout the day because we're all here together to say enough is enough. So a little bit about what we do, what we fight for. We represent right now the #1 fastest growing private sector employer in the United States. We just hit the 13 million worker mark in the restaurant industry. That means 1 in 11 American workers currently works in the industry, and 1 in 2 Americans and 1 in 2 women has worked in this industry at some point in our lifetimes. How many people in the room have worked in restaurants at some point in your lifetime? Look around the room. We are the fastest growing industry in America, and yet we are the absolute bottom of the barrel, lowest paying, and that is because of the money, power, and influence of a trade lobby called the National Restaurant Association. We call it the other NRA. It represents the Fortune 500 chains, the Applebee's, the IHOPs, the Olive Gardens. It's been around, it turns out, since emancipation of slavery, when it first demanded the right to hire newly freed slaves, mostly women, and not pay them anything at all and let them live on this newfangled idea that had come from Europe called a tip. And that idea that a mostly black female workforce could get a $0 wage was made law in 1938 as part of the New Deal, which says everybody now has the right to a minimum wage except for tipped workers who get a $0 wage as long as tips bring them to the full minimum wage, a direct legacy of slavery. And we went from $0 in 1938 to the whopping $2.13 an hour, which is the current federal minimum wage for tipped workers in the United States in 2018. There were multiple speakers who said, I worked at $2 or $1 or whatever in their youth. It is still that wage today in 2018. A $2 increase over 80 years. How is that possible? It's possible because this is a workforce of women. And do I need to say more than the fact that the largest employer of women in America pays $2 an hour to its workforce? What more do we need to know in terms of how much corporate America values us, values our labor, values us as human beings, than the fact that we get paid $2 an hour? And when you have a majority female workforce working for $2 and $3 an hour in 43 states in the United States, you have a workforce that faces literally and statistically the highest rates of sexual harassment of any industry because we must tolerate all kinds of inappropriate customer behavior to feed our families and tips. Almost half of us are single mothers feeding our families on tips. We got an enormous boost and such a wonderful moment with Me Too and Time's Up. And we want to thank our sisters in so many different sectors, not just Hollywood, but domestic workers and farm workers. And we all stood together. Our voices and stories were uplifted. And as a result, we had been fighting to get rid of this absurd and ridiculous minimum wage of $2. And as a result, Governor Cuomo announced earlier this year that he would make New York the 8th state to eliminate this ridiculous sub-minimum wage for tipped workers. It was a huge victory. He hasn't done it yet. He will do it any day now. But in June, we actually won this issue on the ballot in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, raising the wage from $3 to $15 in June.
But the biggest story is Michigan, where we mobilized 400,000 people to get this on the ballot, to get rid of the wage of $3 in Michigan and raise these women's wages to $12 an hour. We got all the signatures. We were ordered to be on the ballot. And the Tea Party Republican legislature, out of fear that we would drive women of color to the polls, made our ballot measure law. Tripled the wages for women in Michigan from $3.52 to $12 just to keep us from going to the polls. So I want you to know how powerful we are. We're so powerful, we can make Republicans triple women's wages. They're so afraid that we will vote. They will do anything to keep us from voting. And we're going to keep fighting. We're mobilizing the 435,000 restaurant workers in Michigan. And by the way, we lost that state to Trump by just 11,000 votes. And there are 435,000 restaurant workers, most of whom don't vote, that we are mobilizing to go to the polls saying, you want to raise, but if you want to keep it, you got to go vote. So we know, because we're doing it in Michigan and we're seeing it, that we have enormous power. We're sitting on 13 million people, mostly women of color, who don't vote, who can't vote, who feel completely disengaged from the political system. Wouldn't you, if every party, every candidate left you behind at $2 and $3 an hour, wouldn't you feel completely disengaged from the political system? So we are mobilizing people to vote themselves a raise. In a way that no candidate, and I love all the candidates in the room, but no candidate and no amount of canvassing is going to get our people out to the polls like actually being able to vote themselves a raise and an end to sexual harassment. Here in California, we're taking it a step further. We've got One Fair Wage 2.0. We already have a wage, but we need to fight to end racial segregation in our restaurants. And we're going to fight to protect workers' tips and gratuities. For all of you Californians, we need your help. We're moving that legislation next year. But we are under threat. We are winning everywhere. And I have to give you a warning because this is difficult to hear. Every time our women stand up and say, we need a wage, all we're asking for is a wage like everybody else. And they share their stories of what it's like to live on tips. And they share their stories of sexual harassment. They get attacked. We've been attacked. Death threats, millions of dollars in lawsuits, going after our funders at their homes, putting my children's pictures up on their attack websites. And last night, again, a warning. Last night, one of our members received a very severe death threat. She testified in Washington, D.C. at a hearing that was packed to the gills with people demanding that the D.C. Council not overturn the will of the people, the measure we just won, raising the wage from $3 to $15. And this is what people said, the men who are fighting us, who are attacking us, said online. I'm going to call her Thelma. Would you like some information on Thelma? She needs to have her life ruined. I want to see the complete destruction of her. I want to see her have another mental meltdown. I have worked with her before and have her believing I am her friend. She is a shit bag of C-U-N-T and deserves to have her life destroyed. And I would love to help you do that. How low and dirty do you want to get with her? This is what happens when women of color stand up and say, I need a wage. Time is up. I need a wage. I will not be disrespected. If you are truly going up against the powerful forces that control our lives, those corporate powers, this is the pushback that we get. We knew we had to expect this because we're actually threatening the most powerful forces in America, corporate control. So we need your help. We really need your help, as you can see. We are asking everybody to go to our website, One Fair Wage /Rock Action. One Fair Wage /action. One Fair Wage /action, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm emotional after reading that. Because I've gotten similar messages myself, so it's very painful. So onefairwage.org/action. Onefairwage.org/action. We need you to sign up. We need you to join us. Because one thing is true. Yes, we are a powerful group of people. Yes, we can determine the future of this country. But we will face this kind of pushback as we do it. We must expect it. And we have to stand together as we go forward to actually win back our country. Thank you.
The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, or CHIRLA, was founded in 1986. CHIRLA is a California leader with national impact, made of diverse immigrant families and individuals who act as agents of social change to achieve a world with freedom of mobility, full human rights, and true participatory democracy. Its mission is to achieve a just society, fully inclusive of immigrants. Please help us welcome to the stage the Executive Director of CHIRLA, Angelica Sales.
Buenas tardes, mujeres. Buenas tardes, mujeres. Thank you for having me here at She the People. As I like to say, ella es el pueblo. I am the Executive Director of CHIRLA, and I'm also the co-chair of FIRM, the Fair Immigration Reform Movement. FIRM is our country's largest immigrant rights organizing network, made up of 33 state and regional rights organizations. The majority of them are run by women, immigrant women. Today, I am honored to be joined by my fellow FIRM executive directors, my sisters from Colorado, from Arkansas, from New Mexico, from Texas, from Kansas, Arizona, Alabama, Washington, D.C., and right here from California. One of our very own, Pramila Jayapal, used to be the executive director of One America. She ran for Congress in Washington State, and she won, and she's there with us fighting the fight. So we are a proud cohort of immigrant women. At FIRM, we join our power to ensure that immigrants are fully and equitably included in this nation, and that immigrant families remain together without fear of persecution and deportation. We fight for just and humane change to our immigration laws so that immigrants and refugees are welcomed in our country and are allowed to thrive with their families. I am a proud immigrant woman from Mexico. I am a proud daughter of Rosy Astorga, a woman like so many other immigrant women today who came to this country so I could have a chance. She wanted me not to go hungry and to have an education and the opportunities that she only dreamed about for herself. I am here today to demand, to ask that you continue to take action for our immigrant and refugee sisters in this country and around the world. There are approximately 21 million immigrant women in the United States, and in the world, women make up half the world's 244 million migrants. Half of the 68 million forcibly displaced people, refugees, and asylum seekers are women. Let me tell you, let me remind you, it is war, it is violence, it is rape, it is feminicide, and it is poverty that are the generators of migration. Our sisters with their children are escaping unimaginable threats to their lives. Developing countries are receiving 85% of the world's migrants and refugees. So there's a lot of women here, many who are running for office, and so I ask you, as women leaders, we must demand that the U.S. do its part and receive the many of the very people who have been harmed by this country's foreign relations decisions and intervention in their countries. We must take responsibility. We cannot turn a blind eye to this humanitarian crisis, and we must stop the Trump administration's cruelty and obsession with tearing families apart at the border and in our neighborhoods. Today, immigrant women with DACA are at the mercy of the courts to remain in this country. Hundreds of thousands of Haitian, African, Honduran, Salvadoran women with temporary protected status are being told to leave this country, even though they have been working here and thriving here for years, for decades. Their children are U.S. citizens. And every day, immigrant women in the workplace are exploited and sexually harassed because their undocumented status makes them vulnerable. The situation is dire. And nonetheless, despite this reality, immigrant women are standing up and fighting back. They are ferociously fighting to keep their families together. They are crossing borders to safeguard their life and that of their children. They are fighting in their unions and at ROC and at so many other worker centers for better wages and to stop sexual harassment. They are the leaders of our community. At CHIRLA and at many of the other immigrant rights organizations, immigrant women are the ones that are leading sophisticated electoral campaigns. I see women in my organization, young and old, hitting the streets and knocking on doors to compel others to have the courage that they had to defend their families. In California, our purpose is to get to 216,000 voters to come out and vote with courage, to unite our vote for a better future. This is our home, and so this is our fight. Immigrant women are taking action across this country to make justice real in everyone's lives. We know that our liberation is tied to the liberation of our African American brothers and sisters, because when they have full citizenship, we can too. We're fighting for LGBTQ rights because we know that love knows no borders and no gender boundaries. We're fighting for housing, access to education, better wages, and for criminal justice reform, because only by uniting our power can we change the unequal systems that deny us our humanity. I will conclude by bringing, once again, the spirit of Harriet Tubman to our gathering. As a child, I remember learning about her and her perilous journeys to help set people free through the Underground Railroad. I came to this country as a child, undocumented, in the dark, through mountains and through rivers. And when I read about her, I thought she was leading people like me and my family. Harriet Tubman demanded courage from those who followed her, because she knew that turning back was not an option, and that freedom demands every ounce of fierceness in our spirit. Sisters, we must be fierce. We must stand together. We will not turn back because our freedom and our lives are on the line. Se puede. Se puede. Thank you very much.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies. Are you enjoying yourself? I'm Ashanti Golar. I'm one of the members of the steering committee for She the People, but every day I have the honor of being the national political director for Emerge America. At Emerge America, we recruit and train Democratic women to run for office. We started in 2002 here in California with Emerge California. Now we're in half the country, 25 states. We trained 4,000 women to run for office. 800 of those women are running for office this cycle. And I'm honored to be here with all of my Emerge sisters. If they would stand, these are the ladies that do the work on the ground every day. At Emerge America, we know that if you want a reflective democracy, that means that you not only need to have women involved, but you need to have women of color involved. We know that women of color don't need the permission of gatekeepers to run for office. they can step up and lead without them. We know that women of color don't only have to represent districts that are predominantly people of color, because people of all ages, races will rally around us because we have great ideas, we have passion, and we're committed to what we do. We also know that when women of color run for office, they hire staff of color, vendors of color, consultants of color, because they know that we belong in every spectrum of politics. But we also know that women of color don't just belong in the room and having a seat at the table, that they belong in that room at the table making the decisions. The woman I'm about to introduce next is one of the women who gets to make those decisions every day. Women are currently 25.3% of state legislatures. Women of color are less than 10%. There are only 2 women of color that are speakers of the House. 2018 is going to be an important election year when we think ahead to 2020 and redistricting. So we shouldn't just be thinking about winning these seats. It's about who's going to be in these seats and making sure that we elevate these women up to the highest level of state houses. I first met Crisanta Duran when she was the president of the Colorado Young Democrats, and I was the president of the Nevada Young Democrats. Even back then, it was very rare to see women of color leading a state Young Democrats organization. And I followed her career ever since then, and I always saw how committed she was to women, women of color, equal rights. And she leads Colorado every day with that passion, with that vision, to make it a great state for everyone. So please welcome to the stage my great friend, the Speaker of the Colorado House, Crisanta Duran.
How we doing, She the People? I am so excited to be here with each and every one of you at a time when women of color are organizing and mobilizing and running for office and winning like never before. And as I look around this room, I am inspired, because as I look at each and every single one of you, you are representative of the best of what America can be and what America has to offer. And I am proud to be on this journey with each and every one of you, a journey that seeks to make sure that we have an economy that works for all and not just those at the top, and a journey that must not stop until no one is taken for granted and no one is left behind. And for me, this journey started many years ago, long before I ever came into elected office. Because when I got out of law school, I went to work to advocate for working people. So that grocery clerks who stock the shelves late at night, nurses who take care of our loved ones in a time of need and a time of sickness, and meatpacking workers who cut the steaks for your dinner room tables would have access to livable wages, affordable and quality health care, and a pension that they could actually count on. And it was that first job out of law school that I had the opportunity to sit at negotiation tables on behalf of workers and across from corporate executives to take on the tough issues and to negotiate to make sure that more families would have access to economic security and access to the American dream. And I knew something then that I still know today, and that is that the backbone of our country has been built by working people. And a sad reality today is that there are too many tables of power in America that do not have leaders that understand the plight of working people. But we must do better. We cannot lead our communities unless we walk a mile in the shoes of those that we seek to represent. And it was with this understanding that when I became the first Speaker of the House and Latina in the country, that I came into the position with a sense of urgency and an understanding that the status quo would not work, so that we would work together to never miss an opportunity to be able to deliver results to the people who have elected us. And I am proud to say that in collaboration with my colleagues, the last 2 legislative sessions are being held up in the state of Colorado as the most productive in a decade. Because it turns out that when you put women of color in charge, we get things done. And so as we continue this journey together to level the playing field, it is more important than ever that we also stand firm against the elevation of hate and of fear. And that is why in Colorado, we passed the bill, Colorado Assets, so that undocumented students could gain access to in-state tuition. Last legislative session, we fought for and we won the reauthorization of the Civil Rights Division, so workplaces and public accommodations and housing can be free from discrimination and harassment in our state. And this past June, when I heard of the manufactured humanitarian crisis that was happening at our nation's border, at a time when families were fleeing to the United States to seek asylum, I went to Tornillo, Texas, also known as the Tent City, to give a voice to the voiceless for those families that were being separated. And regardless of whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, or an unaffiliated, I would hope that we would all be able to agree that tearing those boys and girls away from their mothers and fathers without even having sufficient documentation of which kids belonged to which parents was cruel and it was inhumane. And right before I got to the border, I saw that our First Lady, Melania Trump, wore a jacket because she was there visiting a detention center. And the jacket said, "I don't care, do you?" And when she was asked about it, she said, "Well, it was just a jacket." And when I saw that, I decided to make my own fashion statement and make my own jacket. And so I wore this jacket to the border, which says, "Colorado does care," to send the message that Colorado does care and America does care, because we are a country of compassion and we are a country of love. And at times when it is difficult to love, we must love harder. Because our continued success as a nation right now is not guaranteed. And there is a dangerous movement afoot. Because if the elevation of hate and of fear catches hold, if language that is not normal becomes normalized, then our democracy itself is at risk. And as we continue our journey together, I know that there is much frustration and anger, fatigue at times to see a Supreme Court nominee that is sure to strip the rights away of many, to see tax breaks for the wealthy while hardworking families still have a difficult time getting ahead, and special interest dollars that come into our elections to be able to buy them. But it's these times that I think about when I was 29 years old and I decided to run for office. And I was outspent and there were attack ads against me, and I know that I would not be standing here in front of you today if it wasn't for the power of something that is greater than money in this country. And that is the power of people. It is the power of us to be able to build our communities. And in a time of tragedy, it is incumbent on each and every single one of us to make sure that America's future is a story of triumph. And I am convinced that it will be women of color who lead us to where we need to go. So let's build our communities together. Let's vote together. Let's run for office together. And let's win together. Thank you.
There is God alike and warlike and strong like so lonely some show. There is sad alike and mad alike and had alike, we know. But by my light be I spirit, and by my heart be I a woman. By mine eyes be I open, and by my hands be I whole. They say slowly brings the least shock, but no matter how slow I walk, I leave traces, empty spaces, and doors unlocked. But by my heart be I spirit, and by my heart be I a woman. By mine eyes be I open, and by my hands be I whole. Listen, there are waters hid beneath us. In a well we'll find them still. I'll take you to them. You take your young ones, and may they take their own in turn. And by your heart be you spirit, and by your heart be you woman. By your eyes be you open, and by your hands be you whole. We are ones. We're the next due ones. And I know we'll choose it well, though we try hard. Some may fall prey to the jaded jewel, but still by our heart be we spirits, and by our heart be we human. By our eyes be we open, and by our hands be we whole. By our hands be we whole. By our hands be we whole.
You all are beautiful. Thank you so much.
She the People, can we please give it up one more time for vocalist, songwriter, and producer Jennifer Johns? Well, right now we are going to take a short break. Use this opportunity to continue to make connections with the women who have traveled from 36 states to be amongst us today. Grab something to drink. Don't forget to take pictures and post online, hashtag SheThePeople18. We will restart the program promptly at 2:15. See you then. Ladies, please take your seats. We're going to get started. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Last one in their seat, is it? 4, 3, 2, 'Our next presenter is a 10-year-old fifth grader from Sacramento. She loves to inspire others through speaking, singing, and dancing. She authored her very first book at the age of 8, entitled Say It, which is a book of daily positive affirmations and inspirations for all children. Please help us in welcoming, representing iGeneration, the one and only Lyric Watts.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lyric Watts, and I would like to thank everyone on the She the People Committee for inviting me here today to be a voice for my generation. I want to give a special thanks to Aimee Allison for following her dream for this summit. Can we give it up for Aimee Allison? A wise woman once told me that if you can win the youth, you can win the future. Well, today I am proud to be a part of that youth generation and thankful that I am able to use my voice for good. I am 10 years old and I have a dream to see young women rise up and be a part of the conversation on how we can make an impact in our communities and in our world. I believe that those girls, those women are in this room right now. Do I have any world changers in here? Let me hear you say, yeah. Do I have some powerful women in here? Let me hear you say, yeah. We have a voice. Let's use our voice for change. On the count of 3, repeat after me. 1, 2, 3. She the people. She the people. She the people. She the people. Who is she? No, really, I really want to know. Who is she? She is the girl who dreams big. Who is she? She's the girl who believes she can accomplish her goals. Who is she? She is not intimidated. Did you hear what I said? She is not intimidated by society's standards of what success looks like. She can start a revolution that's built on love. She is the one who gets up after being knocked down. She leads by example. She gets up no matter what. She can lead a nation. Yes, she can run for office. She can stand up for what's right. She can build our democracy. She has girl power. She can make a difference. She's a woman of color, and she can change the world. want to leave you with this absolute truth. Their time is up because our time is now. Thank you.
Lyric Watts, everybody, Lyric Watts. Higher Heights. Higher Heights is the only national organization providing Black women with a political home exclusively dedicated to harnessing their power to elect Black women, influence elections, and advance progressive policies. By strengthening Black women's civic participation in grassroots advocacy campaigns and the electoral process, Higher Heights is creating the environment in which more Black women and other candidates who are committed to advance policies that positively affect Black women can be elected to public office. Please help me in welcoming all the way from New York City, Higher Heights co-founder, Glenda Carr.
Good afternoon. This energy keeps building, and we've been here all day. So on December 13th, we woke up to a chorus of America saying, "Thank you, Black women." But that day when America had this resounding chorus of thank yous, we know that Black women and our allies have already known what we've always known, that Black women lead. I know that because I'm the great-granddaughter of Carrie Lee Dickens. She was born in 1895 and died shy of her 100th birthday. And although she had no access to, had a third grade education, wasn't supposed to own property, didn't have her right to vote, she dreamed a dream bigger than I could have ever imagined for me. She wanted her great-grandchildren to not live in a world confined by walls and glass ceilings. I know that Black women lead because Sojourner Truth stood in a room full of white women posing a question, "Ain't I a woman?" That speech is so relevant today. I know that Black women lead because Fannie Lou Hamer sat in the back of a church as an everyday Black woman that had worked a long day but wanted to use her voice in a way that would change the country. She held the Democratic Party to toe to ensure that our voices were heard. I know that Black women lead because 50 years ago this year, Shirley Chisholm stood in Brooklyn, New York, with her unbought and unbought leadership and ran for office, catapulting her to be the first Black woman to ever serve in that body. I know that Black women lead because Lyric shows us the future of Black women who will lead. So Higher Heights is building a national network of Black women and our allies to harness our political power in a way that embodies Shirley Chisholm's quote. She once said that if there's not a seat at the table, bring your folding chair. Our 21st century model of that are Black women are stepping off the sidelines and saying, "Get out my chair, this is my time." We're seeing that with Black women running oftentimes with little support, with less resources, but showing that we can run, win, and lead. I know that Black women lead because we have an opportunity in the next 46 days to harness our powers. I know that Black women lead because you're looking at me like Black women lead because I've been enjoying her all day. Black women lead because we know that when we fire up a Black woman, she doesn't go to the polls alone. She brings her house, her block, her church, and her sorority. So what do we need to do? We invite you to be part of this political home. When we said that word political home, one of the reasons why we coined that is that when a Black woman, like my great-grandmother, there was always a seat at a table. There was always an extra plate of food. So we're welcoming. We are stronger together, and we each have a role to play. So what are the 3 things we can do individually and collectively to ensure that Black women lead at the polls and on the ballot this year? Is to invest in Black women and invest in a 365-day-a-year investment, because we have shown that we are the best rate of return. So one of the things that I've done this year is I've doubled my political commitments. So you may have never given a donation to a political candidate or a political organization ever. Commit to write a check. And it could be a $3 check or a $1,000 check. Find someone or a cause that inspires you. Be truth tellers. Higher Heights has launched our Black Women Vote campaign in the spirit of Shirley Chisholm's Ain't I Woman speech, and asking you to tell your truth. So on October 16th, we are gathering Black women across this country in your living rooms, in your dining rooms, in church basements, in nail salons and hair salons to tell our truths, to share what are the issues that we care about and what do we need to truly do to ensure that we are going to the polls, but going to the polls to change the makeup of leadership in this country in a way that will do what Black women and our allies want across this country. We want economically safe, economically stable, and healthy communities. So we invite you to be part of this growing movement of unbought and unbought Black women and our allies. If you pull out your phones and text 555-888, Black Women Lead, you will learn how you can step into your power in a way that will allow us to claim our seats at the table to ensure that Black women are leading this country to higher heights.
She the people, how we feeling? Well, looking at my Gucci, it's about that time. It's time to sound the alarm bells, because NT has entered the building. She's bold. She's audacious. She's unapologetically Black and female. And she's one of the 7 great political wonders of the world. Please help me in welcoming former Ohio State Senator, the president of our revolution, the one and only Nina Turner.
Woman, I should say. I received that, one of the 7th great political wonders of the world. Shut up. I'm going to have to take Kimberly Ellis with me everywhere and introduce a sister. Y'all know what I'm saying? Oh, my gosh, she the people. What can I say? I just got to give a shout out to my sister girlfriend, Aimee, for her vision. Baby, bringing women of color like this, setting the world on fire. I say fierce women shake the world. You know, when we move, the world shakes. And don't let us have some purpose with that movement, baby. Can't take it. Transcendence. Oh, man, I mean, everything that I've heard here and just the type of women that Sister Aimee has brought together and the team and the crew. You know, sometimes you got to have people in, not sometimes, it is the people in the background that help the folks in the foreground. So can we give a shout out to the background singers making it happen? So sisters, what can I say? I mean, my sister Glenda Carr just peeked all into my notes. She took all my women, Sojourner Truth and Fannie Lou Hamer and all that kind of stuff. So I really do, you know, one of the beautiful things, and if you have not, hopefully every woman in here has this, and I'm looking at the clock because I want to make sure I stay on time. But this right here, this vision about what She the People really means, fierceness, but in love. Because see, love is the fiercest of them all. Love ain't weak, baby. It is because of love that women are in D.C. right now, Sister Linda, getting arrested to stop Judge Kavanaugh from being on the Supreme Court. Love. It is because of love that Sister Fannie Lou Hamer shook that thing up. Love. It is because of love that we gather here as women of the rainbow mosaic, coming together to edify one another, to lift one another, and to understand that the power is in our hands, because every great thing that has ever been done in this country, and dare I say the world, baby, a woman was there. And see, we can speak on it now. We can speak on it in a way that our foremothers never had the opportunity to do so. And we cannot squander this moment of transcendence. You see, everybody not ready for this moment. So sisters, now we got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Is that all right? Because change is about being uncomfortable and speaking a truth that is in love, but that is righteous. And I don't mean righteous as in you're more perfect than anybody else, but a truth that says that it is a damn shame that Flint still ain't got clean water. I'm talking about that kind of truth 4 years later. That it is a shame that in the 21st century, there was a study done that said that it would take African-American community 228 years to catch up with the average wealth of the average white family. Something is wrong with that. That is the kind of truth we must speak. Because it's not about individual racism or bigotry. It is about systems. It is about a white woman police officer that can go to the door of a black man and shoot him in his own house. It is about the burden that our children must continue to bear. In the words of the rapper Ice Cube, my skin is my sin. And I want you to think about birthing babies in the world. I got a son, and my baby is 20-something years old. He's still my baby, but the weight of the world that he must bear just because his skin has been kissed by the sun. What She the People is about is understanding that black women and other women of color, we don't have to ask permission. We don't need permission slips to lead, because, baby, we've been leading this whole time. And we're not just leading for ourselves. When sisters get this party started, we lift each and every person. So sisters, we have to understand that about ourselves and what we bring, the fierceness, but to do it in love, because love is the fiercest of them all. So I want to wrap this thing up with 3 things. Not only that we are here in this moment, we must not squander this moment. I hope you're collecting business cards and telephone numbers. And it is really about the network. Because many hands make for light work. Some of you are in this room because you care about the environment. Some of you are in this room because you care about reproductive justice. Some of you are in this room because you understand that income and wealth inequality makes no sense in the wealthiest country on the face of the earth. Whatever brings you to this space, many hands make for light work. So I want to leave you with these 3 things. Number 1, I believe that the creator of this great universe has given us 2 hands, one to reach forward and one to reach back, lifting as we climb. We are our sisters and our brothers' keepers. We are our sisters and our sisters' keepers. And womanism is about humanity. It's not about being anti-man, but it's about being pro-humanity and understanding that a woman shall lead them. And when we lead with love, and we lead with a fierceness that is transcendence. You see, there's promise in the problem, and we are the promise, but not in an elite kind of everybody else, the hell with them kind of way, but in a way that says that we're going to bring some folks with us. So 2 hands, one to reach forward and one to reach back. Number 2, sisters, we can't ask other folks to do more for us than we are willing to do for ourselves. Putting it on the front line. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And lastly, in the words of my grandmother was born in 1913. Grandma could not read or write, but sister, she could count her money. And she kept her money in the Southern ladies. Bank and trust. Y'all know what I'm saying? She had money on one hand and a pistol on the other. In a handkerchief. And even though she didn't have a formal education, she had what we call in the African-American community mother wit. When I asked my grandmother, what does it take to be successful in life? She said, my dear granddaughter, all you need are 3 bones, the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. She said, the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying because hope is the motivator. The jawbone will give you courage to speak truth, the power to lift your voice. You see, sisters, titles are good, but purpose is better. We got so many people sitting up in rooms, they don't even know why they're there, they done forgot. They so giddy about being in the room, they don't fight for the people. Purpose is better. But Grandma said the most important bone of them all, the supercalifragilistic expialidocious bone, is the backbone. Because the backbone will keep us standing through all of our trials and tribulations. And sisters, in this life, we're going to go through some stuff. But we can't have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested about whether or not we got courage and conviction enough, enough, fierceness enough, love enough to do what is right, even when we are uncomfortable. Sisters, when we move, the world shakes. Fierce women shake the world. This is a transcendent moment. And we are blessed to be in this moment. Many hands make for light work. So let's take my grandmother's wishbone. Let's take that jawbone. And baby, we can't make a move without the backbone. And continue to make a difference where we are with what we have. Transcendence is upon us. She the people, baby. She the people. She the people. She the people. Fierce women shake the world.
Yes! Give it up for Nina Turner. I am so grateful for your leadership. And when she was on my podcast years ago, she was just finishing a national tour as part of a presidential primary campaign. And she was talking about that candidate. I said, forget about that candidate. What about you? So what I want to say is, Nina Turner, we're grateful for you. And I'm so grateful that everyone is here in the room. How you feeling? Our next speaker was also a guest on my podcast. She comes out of the immigrant rights movement, and she is an organizer. She went to Congress recently and said she was going to organize her colleagues in the House. But before she decided, after she left the State House up in Washington, and before she ran this remarkable campaign in the Northwest, how many of you from the Northwest in the House? Your people are here. She and I had a conversation about women of color, and I'll never forget it. She said to me, Amy, you need to understand something about what it is to be a woman and a woman of color. We're not the women's movement. We're a movement of women. And when you said that, when she said that to me, universes came from it. She, the people, was in part born from how she helped me lift the veil from my eyes and see us for the powerhouse that we are. So please join me in welcoming and embracing the Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Aimee Allison, there is no question in my mind that if you go on Aimee Allison's podcast, you end up making a whole different future for yourself. So just start fighting for that. And I really just want to say, Aimee, I'm so grateful. And if that conversation lifted me up in all kinds of ways, and to see what you have done here today is just remarkable. I walked into this room back there, the green room, and I was surrounded by all these women that I love, that I am inspired by, and I felt the energy of women of color together fighting for what we believe in, understanding that our oppressions and our resilience have driven us to where we are. And so I really want to say thank you so much for She the People, for being who you are, and to everybody in the room for being here. Yeah, I think that deserves a big round of applause. You know, I never thought I would be in politics. I never thought I'd run for office. I was born in India, and I came to the United States when I was 16 years old by myself because my parents felt like this was a place I was going to have the best education and where I was going to have the most opportunity. And I ended up being, for the last 15, 20 years, an immigrant civil and human rights activist. And I only decided to run for office because I got tired of trying to get other people to do the things that we felt should be done. I got tired of not seeing more women of color in office. I got tired of not seeing immigrants in office. And I realized that we as activists and organizers were ceding this incredibly important political space for organizing. That's what this is for me. And when people say to me, I want to run for office, what advice do you have? I say, think about what you want to do, not who you want to be. Because that's why we're here. Because we want to do something and make the world a different place for so many people in our communities that have not been represented for so long. And so I am proud. I was the only woman of color in the state Senate when I ran in Washington State. Northwest, what is up with that? I mean, that is just crazy. We're supposed to be a liberal state. And then when I ran for Congress and I became the first South Asian American woman ever elected to the House, go Daisies. But I also became the only person of color that Democrats in my state of Washington had ever sent to Congress, and I also am one of only 12 immigrants in the U.S. House. People born outside of the United States, out of 535 of us, we need that voice desperately, because it isn't just because the pictures look better, which they always do. It isn't. I mean, I'm just saying. It isn't because you get to check some box. It is because the stories that we tell, the hearings that we chair, and the legislation we craft is different because of those real lived experiences. And so for me, when we say she the people, what I'm talking about is what happens when we get into these positions. For me, it meant that I was the first member of Congress to the federal prison where all of those hundreds of women from the border were being held, women who were seeking asylum, women who had been separated from their children. And when they told me their stories, our job is to elevate those stories, tell them, make sure that they are at the front and center of the conversation, and then work with the incredible allies like Ai-jen Poo from National Domestic Workers Alliance and Anna Gallant from Move On, and turn out 400,000 people into the streets to say family separation is wrong. That is what it looks like. What else does it mean? It means being on the House Judiciary Committee when a guy named Scott Lloyd came before us and tried to testify that he had the right to tell an immigrant woman who had crossed the border and was in federal custody that she did not have the right to an abortion. And we had to challenge him and say, nope, that's not true. Immigrants have constitutional rights as well. And he clearly looked like a fool if you saw that video. It means forming the first environmental justice caucus with my friends Nanette Berrigan and Don McEachin to say, yes, we have to address climate change, but we have to do it in a way where our communities of color are front and center, and we get us to the same level playing field. And it has meant fighting for domestic workers' rights. We're getting ready to introduce the first federal domestic workers' Bill of Rights, fighting for farm workers' rights because farm workers should not be exempted from all of the rights and the workplace protections that they deserve. So, and here's what I want to say. Every minute we are calculating, and I have learned so much from an incredible woman that you're going to hear from next that you all know and love, Representative Barbara Lee. She was an inspiration for me. And she is going to be the next caucus chair for the Democratic Party, if we have anything to do with it. But every minute, we as women of color in particular are calculating. We're calculating whether it is worth it to take the risk of standing up one more time. We are calculating which risks are worth standing up for the most, which issues are worth standing up for the most. We are calculating when we should stand up and when we should hold back and hope that there's somebody else who is ready to stand up. And we know that there are these moments when we take it on because we know we can't be silent. So if I'm going to be told by a Republican member of Congress from Alaska that I don't know a damn thing about what I'm talking about and called young lady on the floor, you can bet I'm going to shut the House down and demand a public apology. Because it isn't just me that he's minimizing and patronizing. It is all of us. It is the people that voted for me. It is the women of color across the country who are looking at that and saying that that's not okay. So our work, as my sister Nina Turner, she needs her own show. I mean, she really does. She is unbelievable, and she needs to be in the White House, but you know, that's a whole different issue. But we have to broaden the circle. We really have to broaden the circle of people that are there, and that is why I am so excited that we will have Deb Haaland, that we will have Ilhan Omar, that we will have Rashida Tlaib, that we hopefully will have Gina Ortiz-Jones, that we will have these women of color across the country who are going to come into Congress and change the way that that body functions and the way that we ourselves stand up. That is what women of color do over and over again. And we do stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, people like Sojourner Truth who have passed, and women like Barbara Lee who are right here with us. And we broaden our own shoulders so that we can bring others in. The women of color who are running for office today and winning know that it is too important and too consequential for us to be timid. I am done with incrementalism. I want bold change. I want change that allows every person in this country, white, black, and brown, to actually have more than $1,000 in their savings account, because that's what's happening today. 62% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their bank account. I want people to think about leaving a country for their kids that is better than the one we have now. I want women and mothers not to worry about whether their children are going to come home at night because their pants are too low or because they decide to speak up when they see something wrong. I want people who understand this criminal justice system has to be reformed, that we need to end private prisons, that we need to transform our immigration system, that we need to pass comprehensive, humane, just immigration reform, because the Republicans will never do it, so the Democrats have to stand up for that. And yes, I did start a Medicare for All caucus because I do believe that health care is a right and not a privilege. And that is the work that we are doing. And so now, between now and November, we're doing everything we can to win back the House and the Senate, hopefully. But once we do that, we have a real agenda to stand up for. We have real people in our lives, in our communities, in our country that are hurting. And we have incredible, fierce, strong women of color who have been leading. Don't think that we haven't been leading already. We have been leading, but we need that space to be fully recognized for that leadership. And so that's why She the People and what Aimee and her team here has done is so important, because we are saying we are ready to lead the way we have always led, with generosity and abundance, not scarcity and fear, with a deep belief that we can be fierce, we can be resilient, we can organize, not agonize, and we can make sure that the world we're building happens that much faster because women of color are in leadership. Thank you all so much, and let's go win.
And now, a political icon. The former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She serves as the current whip and former co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. She's also the vice chair and founding member of the LGBT Equality Caucus. And today, she is poised to be the first Black woman to serve in the House Democratic leadership as the Democratic Caucus chair. She represents California's 13th congressional district, which encompasses the town, also known as Oakland, things that a lot of folks don't know about the Congresswoman is that she used to be a cheerleader when she was in high school. And as a former cheerleader myself, it's something that I really appreciate. Because let me tell you something. This woman is the biggest cheerleader in Congress when it comes to fighting for social justice. So here in the Bay, we have a saying, and I want to bring up our hometown hero in a way that she can recognize. So we are going to do what we call in cheerleader speak, a call and repeat. So here in the Bay, we say, Barbara Lee speaks for me. And so I'm going to start it off with Barbara Lee, and I would love y'all to help me speaks for me. Can we please stand up? Y'all ready? Barbara Lee. Speaks for me. Barbara Lee. Speaks for me. Barbara Lee. Speaks for me. Barbara Lee. Louder. Barbara Lee. Speaks for me. Barbara Lee. Speaks for me. Please help me in welcoming our hometown hero, Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
What an introduction, Kimberly. Let me just thank you so much for that very spirited She the People introduction. But also, I just want to thank, where's Kimberly? I just want to thank you for really making our California democratic, more democratic and more inclusive, and being such an unbelievable leader. Thank you so much. And to Aimee, my sister, listen, what a brilliant idea. And the timing is perfect. It gives those of us, all of us, so much inspiration, and it gives us what we need to keep moving forward to November and beyond. So give Aimee and the steering committee and Kimberly and everyone a round of applause. And I just want to say, I think Pramila had to leave, but let me tell you, Pramila has changed the conversation, even in the Progressive Caucus. Even in the Progressive Caucus. She has been phenomenal. She's fighting for a rational national defense. She's fighting for our children, as you know, and our families, and she has really come to Congress and hit the ground running. And I know you're proud of her, but I just wanted to say to Pramila, and also to Deb, I know who was here earlier, and Rashida, I mean, what a difference this election is making for women and for families and for children around the country. So thank you all very much for inviting them today, but also for supporting them. And as Pramila said, we have so many phenomenal women running for the House of Representatives this year. So the power of women of color will help regain the soul of America. I am convinced of that. I am convinced of that. We're the backbones of our families and the foundation of our communities. And so not only are we smart, we do the work. The work of organizing, the work of activism, the work of running for office. So we are the face of this country, and we hold the power to enact change. All of you do, all of us do. Now, I was asked to speak today about courage and leadership. I can think of no greater example of courage than the late, great Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm, who was my mentor and encouraged me to get involved in politics. She was the first African-American woman elected to Congress 50 years ago. She was the first woman and the first African-American to mount a serious campaign for the presidency. Without Shirley Chisholm, there would not have been a Barack Obama as our first African-American president. Shirley Chisholm paved the way. Or Barbara Lee is the first African-American woman from Northern California elected to the California Assembly, Senate, and Congress. It wouldn't be. Shirley used to say, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Well, we have brought our chairs and we are here to stay. It takes courage to break down racist and sexist barriers in politics. But guess what? Women of color are, and you know this, the most courageous people in the country. We are, and you know that. And so we must demand a seat at the table and stay there. Now, Kimberly mentioned cheerleading. I learned this lesson early on in terms of social justice, in terms of racial justice, as a teenager at San Fernando High School. Like many California girls, I wanted to be a cheerleader. But to be a cheerleader at San Fernando High School, you had to try out before a small selection committee. And the selection committee made sure that every cheerleader had blonde hair and blue eyes. And you see, that's not me. I remember thinking, now this is wrong. Young women, and I was 14 then, young women of color have just as much pride, talent, and ability as white girls. And we have a lot of soul. So I did what I knew in my heart was to be right. I stood up to the leadership of our school and demanded that the selection committee be disbanded. I went to the NAACP. By then, I think I was 15, 14 and a half, 15. I went to the NAACP, this outside-inside strategy, that's how I learned. To help pressure the school to change the process. And it worked. We got a fair process for girls to try out before the student body. So I tried out, and I won. Now, that was my first election, and I became the first African-American cheerleader at San Fernando High School. Now, people at the time told me that it took courage to call out this injustice, but I thought it was just, I wanted to do this. But I didn't do it just for myself, because I knew it wasn't just for me. It was for creating opportunities for other girls of color. And that year, when I became cheerleader, we also elected our first Asian American cheerleader at San Fernando High, Jeannie Tanaka. That happened that first year. And then a Latina was elected. So that's what women of color do. We open doors so other women can walk through. That's what we do. But that lesson stayed with me when I went to school at Mills College, my undergraduate college, just across the bay. I was a young single mom on public assistance and food stamps at the time. I was active in the community, serving as president of the Black Student Union, volunteering with the Black Panther Party, Wakanda Forever, yes, and raising two phenomenal little boys, grown men now. My professor in our government class assigned us to do field work on a presidential campaign. It was George McGovern, Hubert Humphrey, and Ed Muskie. They were the candidates. And my mind was already made up. I was going to flunk this class. No way was I going to work for any of them. I never flunked a class in my life, but those men didn't represent the issues important to me as a Black single mother. Issues like child care, public education, universal health care, and ending poverty. And then I met Shirley Chisholm. I invited Shirley Chisholm to Mills to address the BSU as the first African-American woman elected to Congress. Of course, I had no idea until she said it during her speech that she was, in fact, running for president. I couldn't believe it. Now, this was a candidate I could believe in. She was a champion for children and struggling families. She spoke fluent Spanish. She fought for the rights of immigrants. She stood up against racism and sexism and xenophobia. She opposed the war in Vietnam. She was doing what she knew to be right. And regardless of the criticism, and she took a lot. She was bold, she was courageous, and she was unbought and unbossed. That was Shirley Chisholm. As soon as she finished her speech, I rushed to her and told her about my assignment and offered to do anything I could to help her campaign. She told me she needed help in organizing in California. When she asked me if I was registered to vote, I admitted that I was not. Yeah, I was a revolutionary. Still am, but I'm registered to vote. She was not pleased. She looked at me with a look that I will never forget. And she said, little girl, and I was in my 20s by then with these two little kids, but she still said, little girl, you can't change the system if you're on the outside just looking in. You've got to register to vote. So I registered to vote. I organized the Northern California campaign from my class at Mills College. I got an A in the class and went on to the convention in Miami as a Shirley Chisholm delegate. The rest is history, okay? That's what one woman did. So check this. I am the 20th African-American woman elected to Congress since the first Congress in 1791. Isn't that a shame? The 20th. But because of you, more African-American women and women of color will soon be in Congress next year to be our representative of she the people. More, many more. We will mark in November the 50th anniversary of Shirley Chisholm's courageous and historic election to Congress. Before Hillary Clinton ran for president, or Barack Obama ran for president, or the Reverend Jesse Jackson ran for president, there was Shirley Chisholm, okay? And when Shirley Chisholm ran for president, she started a movement that is still reverberating today in this very room. She showed us what was possible. She showed us what true courage and leadership was all about, because she understood something very fundamental, and that is that the laws and the rules of this country have stacked the deck against women and people of color. They were written to keep us down. And so we must become politically active, not to go along to get along, but to change the rules of the game. Change the rules of the game. And to fight for real systemic and institutional change. That's what she was about. So we must show up. It's our reproductive rights that are on the chopping block. When we show up, we will repeal the discriminatory Hyde Amendment. When we show up. It's our kids going to underfunded schools taught by overworked teachers if we don't show up. But when we show up, we will finally have universal preschool for all of our children, regardless of their zip code where they live. And we will crack that school-to-prison pipeline when we show up. If we don't show up, we will never see equal pay or true equality under the law for women. But when we show up, we will have paid family medical leave for everyone. And yes, we will protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid for our seniors when we show up. And so we need to elect women who won't back down, like all of you in this room today. We need to uplift the next generation of women like Shirley Chisholm did, like Patsy Mink. Patsy was the first Asian Pacific American woman elected to Congress and the author of Title IX. And Dolores Huerta, our icon, a leader in the struggle for economic justice and farm workers and for women of color. They all paved the way for me and for all of you. So changing the rules takes courage. It requires us to dig deep and believe in ourselves and who we are. Strong and brilliant and bold. Strong, brilliant, and bold women of color who will change the world, and we won't back down on who we are. You have the courage of your convictions, and you all are paving the way for the next generation of girls who will see themselves in you. This is generational. You are changing the face of politics and policy. You are changing the world. And so I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to thank you all for your courage and thank you for your leadership, because make no mistake, women of color, We are the blue wave. We are the blue wave. So take pride in that. Know your power. And come November, if we do our work, the world will see us and our power. They'll see our power like they've never seen it before. So thank you all. Thank you, Aimee, again. Thank you, She the People. And as we say in my district, stay woke. Stay woke. Stay woke.
Put your hands together for the amazing Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She speaks for me. Remember, she stood alone, but you know what? We will not have people stand alone. We stand together, and we stand together as She the People, women of color across the nation. So all my friends from the swing states, will you come on up to the stage with me? Because we're about to end the live stream, and we're about to begin the organizing. If you thought this was a one-day thing and then go home, that's not what we're in the room for. We're 7 weeks before the most important election of our lifetimes. But by February 2019, we're going to know who wants to run for president. We got a message for the nation. You're not going to be president without the sustained and enthusiastic support and organizing of women of color. You need us. And so I want to tell you what we're going to do for the next couple of hours, if you'll do it with me. Because we have things, if you look at your Twitter feed or Facebook, it's like every day there's some new assault. But we don't want to lose our strategic eye. So this room and the people on the live stream represent a new, powerful network. We are the people who are the organizers, the candidates. We are the leaders who will govern. We are the people that will drive money and resources into a strategy to win. And it needs to be led by women of color. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go downstairs where we set up a number of tables. We have our leaders from the Midwest, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, Virginia, and Virginia. These women are from swing states. You know what that means, right? We have everything we need to win in swing states. We have everything we need to organize, but we need you. So let's do some things. She the People was never intended to be a one-day summit, although I love you all and you're so beautiful. She the People is deeply strategic and powerful, and we need to work with you to organize in your own communities and states. I have women from swing states here because that's a strategic focus, but we need women of color to be organized in every state represented in this room. So my request as we go forth is to be part of our network, to help organize our network. If you haven't done so already, when you go downstairs, you're going to get a sheet of paper about your commitments to organizing and helping us win, not just in 7 weeks. We're bigger than an election. Do you get this? It's not about an election. We're bigger than that. We have the values of love and justice and belonging and democracy. We're working on a long-term game. When Shirley Chisholm started 50 years ago, she wouldn't have imagined maybe that she would inspire this room, but she has. And so let's take a moment downstairs. When you get your organizing instructions, meet one of these women at the tables for the swing states or start your own. I don't have to tell you how to organize. This is a room full of organizers. And we have some things to do. But most importantly, in the town hall meetings that we want to have in swing states in 2019 to elevate and solidify the political power and leadership of women of color. That's the goal.
We will also hold the first presidential forum focused on women of color, the first one in history, and I need you with me. I want to say goodbye to the folks who have watched online. We reached over 3.5 million people today. I want to thank our beautiful and stunning and talented MC, Kimberly Ellis. I want to thank the steering committee, women, powerful women who have helped me organize over the last few months. If you're not already standing, stand up. We want to thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to put a special shout out to our sponsors who believed in this vision and underwrote the fact that we could be in this beautiful location. And that starts with Facebook and Way to Win and Daily Kos. And Women's Donor Network and Act Blue. Put your hands together for our sponsors for today. Thank you for believing in women of color and believing in democracy. There's too many people to thank, personally, but a shout out to all the volunteers today in those great t-shirts. Thank you. And last but not least, we're in the Julia Morgan Ballroom. There's been people serving food behind, making the food and making it possible for us to have a beautiful time today. Put your hands together for the staff here. Thank you. DJ, I need you to put some music on because we're going to head downstairs. DJ, come on. Let's put some music on. We're going to head downstairs. And there's no DJ, but we're going to go downstairs. All right, I'll meet you downstairs. Thank you all.